What's up YouTube, Jay Travellini here, and today I finally got a couple more rigs up and running. If you guys remember from my last video, I was splitting my one rig up and getting some more cards running. So I finally found some time and got it up and going. Now we'll talk about, I named it Tevge, so we'll go inside the computer and check that out. It's all EVGA TI cards. It has 5 3070 Ti's on it and a 3080 Ti. Now I did set this one up on Flux, so I'm mining on there. I have a total of about 800 souls a second. Not that this one's contributing to, that's not the full rig. We'll go through the hash rates on it and my overclocks in just a few seconds, but this one, I have it running on a 1200 watt Thermaltake power supply that came off of my 580 rig before I sold it. I kept all the parts, and I have it on the Z270 Strix motherboard along with an 1100 watt server power supply. So I have the 1200 watt power supply powering the motherboard and 3 of the cards, and then I have the 1100 watt power supply supplying power to the other 3 cards. I do not have the connector that bridges the power supplies together, so I do have to turn the server power supply on first and then turn the ATX one on, and then it all powers up. But let's go inside the computer and we'll check this one out. So this is my overclocks for it, and you can see the 5 3070 Ti's and the 3080 Ti. Now the 3080 Ti is actually really nice on Flux in my opinion. Get 95 souls. Now I do cap it at 250 watts, and I can see the memory temperatures, and they're actually really good. But you can also look, I don't push them really hard on Flux. I do 200 core 700 memory, and then I up the power some, so I could actually up the power slightly on all the cards, since the temps are really well in here. Now this I may leave on this frame and put it inside the other tent when I get it all set up. Now the one thing I do like about HiveOS now is that you can still see the memory temps even when you're not using certain miners. Before you had to use certain miners and then run a command line to see it, but I'm using Mini-Z miner for this one, and I'm getting roughly 408 souls a second at 1230 watts. Now we'll calculate this together with my other rig, but I do have HiveOS add 80 watts on the dashboard. It doesn't do it up here, I don't think, but I have it add 80 watts per rig for when it calculates, and I'm looking at the overall snapshot just because of motherboard power. But we'll calculate this one and we'll look at the other one. Now, if you remember, my other one was the one I was splitting, and that's where the 3080 Ti came from, and the four of the 5 3070 Ti's. Now I did split this one and set the other one up, so now it has 2 3070s on the bottom, 2 3090s on the top, and a 3080, and another 3090 kind of hiding on the bottom there. Now this rig did have an issue. One of my 3090s was crashing, and I couldn't figure out why. So after some diagnosing, I swapped the riser, still the same issue. I lowered the memory overclock, still had the issue. I had my memory down at like 15 or 1600 on the memory. I was doing like 117 mega hash. It was still having a driver crash. So I took a long shot and I swapped out the server power supply back to my 2400 watts. So I had two 1100 watt power supplies powering this rig, which should have been plenty of power, but the one was supplying power to the motherboard also, and along with 2 3090s, and I had my other one powering my 2 3070s, a 3090 and 3080. So it was roughly around 700 to 800 watts coming out of this power supply. Now for some reason, one of the cards just kept crashing. So I swapped the power supply, and the past 17 hours, it's been running solid. So I'm thinking I solved the issue. I'm gonna give it a little more time, but let's go inside and look at that rig. Now, this one kept the same name for the Win rig. They're all for the Win cards. For some reason, it doesn't always show my memory temperatures on this one, but it has been hashing away, and the memory temperatures are pretty high on this one. I have seen them hit 100 degrees Celsius, but like I said, the dashboard doesn't always show this. I may have to do a clean install, but you can look at this one. This was my problem card, and it's running 291 watts. Now, before I swapped the power supply, I did notice this one a little bit lower. It was running about 286 watts. Now, 4 to 5 watts, some people say won't matter, but it also has an uptime of 17 hours. It did drop off the pool once, but I don't understand why it did that. I'm sure I had a network issue, and I rebooted it and it was right back and fine, and it's been fine since, and that was 17 hours ago. So I'm hoping that I found the fix for this issue. Being a power supply issue was a long shot, but I'm hoping that it may be the power supply was overheating because it was screaming. But this one does 593 mega hash. Now this I may up to 2500 if it stays stable for 48 hours. I may up this a little bit to try and get to 23 mega hash. But 593 mega hash is good, and it's doing 1400 watts roughly. Like I said, I do add a little bit in Hive OS. It doesn't add in this number, but in the dashboard, like if I go to my main farm on this, it adds power to it. You can do that in the settings. I can show you in a different video if you want, but that's how I do it. But let's go to what to mine. I mean, Ethereum profits have been a little bit higher lately, but let's go to what to mine. And I do have it punched in already. Now I pay roughly 13 cents per kilowatt hour. Personally, I don't even care about paying the electric. I can pay for it out of pocket from my job. It's not a good mindset to have. You should always factor that in, but I just pay it, and I want to hold these coins for the long run. But the 593 mega hash, I put 1500 watts and then 408 souls. Even though it says hash souls a second, I put 1330 watts. I added 100 watts to each one to give you guys a rougher idea of what I would profit from it. So if we calculate this, I don't know exactly the price of Flux right now, but it's calculating ETH at 32.27. So here we go. Here's both. So on Ethereum, I'm looking at $27, almost $28 a day in revenue, and profit I'm looking at just over $23 a day. Pretty good for one rig, but also look at the money that was invested in that rig. Those 3090s were like $1,900 each, and the 3080 was, I believe, like $850 from B stock, and then my 3070s were $720 each about. So a lot of money invested in that rig, and that 2400 watt power supply isn't cheap either. Now I may swap that out for a different one later on once I know for sure it was a power supply issue, because I do want to get rid of that 2400 watt power supply. It's just too big for my needs. Others with custom built mining frames, it would work great for, because you can run so much power, and companies like Parallel Miner claim that you can just run them full bore 2400 watts, no problem. Now Flux, this is my other rig, $13.29 a day revenue, and then just over $9 a day profit. Now Flux is a little different. I'm trying to mine it and get into the node side of it. So I am mining that with all my LHR cards. Now, some people may say that I'm kind of silly for doing that and I should use Lowell Miners LHR unlock. Now it's up to 78%, but I don't know. I'll test that out, I think, on my temporary rig first and see if I even like it. I haven't touched a single LHR unlock since they've come out. Even my 3060, 2x3060 rig over there in the corner, that's on a motherboard with the dev driver, full hash rate. It's not really an LHR unlock. It's something that the devs from NVIDIA put out or leaked out. But those are my two rigs that I have together. I'm so glad I got them up and running. And currently I have 0 GPUs sitting idle. They are all on mining rigs. This is probably the first time in 2 years I have not had one GPU sitting idle. I always had GPU sitting in the box, waiting to get on rigs, waiting for some type of part, waiting. It was always common vocabulary for me. Oh, I'm waiting on this, I'm waiting on that. Oh, I don't have enough cables. Crap, I'm short a riser. There was always an issue I ran into. Now I have probably 2 or 3 dozen extra risers, multiple extra cables for server power supplies, extra breakout boards, extra server power supplies. Motherboards I don't have a scarcity of. They're all in use. So if a motherboard were to break or I have an issue with it, then I'm back to the waiting game. But currently I'm, like I said, waiting for Octominers to show up. They haven't even shipped yet, but I do have them purchased and the order was confirmed. So I expect to have them probably late. What's it? They're going to ship mid-April, probably late May. I plan on getting those. That should help me with some heat in my basement. But I like to see what you guys are doing. If you guys are splitting rigs up to smaller rigs, selling off cards just to upgrade, or just expanding in general, or if you guys think that I should have just kept building 12 GPU rigs. My opinion is they're harder to power, they're harder to cable manage, and they're harder to diagnose when there's an issue. And anyone that's been crypto mining long enough knows that it's not if you have an issue, it's when you have an issue. Every rig I've ever built has had some type of issue, whether it's right away or later on down the road, whether it's a card crapping out, cards fan dying, cards starting to overheat and need cleaning, a riser deciding it wanted to break, a riser just not working well with a card, and which I've had happen. I've had risers that did not work with some cards, and I tried them on another one, and they worked perfectly fine. I've also had risers that seemed to be working fine, but the overclocks weren't setting and my card wouldn't hash as high as it could. Swap the riser out, boom, total fix. And then I've also had motherboards that work one day and the next day will not power on. So it's been a long journey, but maybe another video. If you guys would want to hear that video of my crypto mining journey, I'll make one. But thanks for checking this video out. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, comment down below. I'd like to hear what you guys are doing, what cards you're running, what rigs you're building. But see you next time.